Hey folks, welcome back to the High Pass AI and Healthcare podcast. Super excited to introduce our guest here today. Tahira, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes. My name is Tahira Davis. I am an automation and innovation director for a health plan in the Inland Empire, Southern California. I have 11 years healthcare experience and 19 years experience plus in the technology sector. And I am excited to be here today.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to have you. Hey, folks, for those who don't know, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Jeremy from HighPass, making AI a reality in healthcare. Teams like Kaiser Permanente, Molina Healthcare, and Centara love HighPass because they're able to automate healthcare administration, data conversion, membership enrollment, and claims with HighPass. They reduce claims processing by 30%, fraudulent claims by 50%. They save $10 million annually on fraud losses. They get to secure exchange of health data using FHIR and automate billing operations and compliance with Medicare and Medicaid. So, Tahir, let's dive right in. Could you tell us a little bit more about the roles and responsibilities of automation and data engineering? What is and what are some of the use cases? Yeah.
Okay, so to start with roles and responsibilities, my department is responsible for low-code, no-code app development and RPA. On the data engineering side, we've kind of shifted, but it's all encompassing. Uh, APIs, data interchange, anything that has to do with moving data through a system and finding efficient ways to do that. That's what my team is responsible for. I am passionate about bringing AI into the organization in an ethical and practical way. And I really like to try to push the envelope. That's what we do in my area. I really try to focus on bringing in new use cases that are not only impactful to the organization, but have a return on investment that's more about value, adding value to the employees, adding value to the teams, freeing them up to do things that are more meaningful and impactful to the organization besides the redundant and mundane tasks that are often overly manual and complicated because of limitations, system limitations, or different things of that nature. So, um, in terms of use cases, there are a myriad of use cases, and the use cases grow every day. Every day, we're finding something new to add to our to-do list, so to speak. Some of the main use cases include, for RPA, and I have to section this off.
Mhm.
For RPA, some of the main use cases include things where we've done an assessment or a study that concludes that these are a good fit for automation. So these are going to be rule-based, highly rule-based, very repetitive processes. And then what we're doing so far is we're taking claims adjudication and increasing
Mm.
adjudication rates by incorporating RPA to uh, follow all of the adjudication rules on fallout claims that aren't normally processed through auto adjudication. Um, we have some other use cases on the low code, no code app development side where we're incorporating IVR for PCP changes and IVA, and additionally bringing in chatbot functionality and things of that nature. So there are a lot of use cases.
Absolutely, incredible, growing every day. You
In,
mentioned you're bringing AI into the automation and the data engineering field. I'm curious, what are some opportunities you see AI making an impact where maybe people doing it manually or even technology before AI couldn't do before? What do you see are those sort of biggest opportunities you're most excited about?
oh, opportunities that we couldn't do before. There are uh, real opportunities in performance monitoring. That's one of the things I would like to discuss today. Um, I just had a talk with one of our vendors yesterday about the possibility of utilizing the data science side of things to create automated performance metrics on some of our low code, no code apps that we have developed that are what I want to call omni-channel campaigns. So let's just say you have a series of text messages that you want to send out, and those text messages have a high value for either quality or health equity or any of those things. What I would like to do is see new uses where AI can then take all the historical data and suggest relevant times to launch campaigns, relevant campaign types for different personas. So if we have a group of members, let's say that have a specific chronic condition or a specific care gap, that then AI would be able to come in and do all the analysis on the back end and then let us know what are some good strategies to now go and engage with these members to
Mhm.
bring, those care to close those care gaps, and also maybe highlight from a conversational aspect, what are some of the ways that engagements in the past have worked? Where have we seen the highest engagement? What kind of language did we use? What time did we send it? Things of that nature. So those are some of the ideas that I'm having.
Absolutely. And
Mm,
that's a great segue. You mentioned you want to build technology and automation that brings value to the employees
mhm,
and to the users,
mhm,
the consumers. Um, would you be able to maybe give us a few more? That was one example that you just gave us. A few
mhm.
examples of bring value. How do you define, right? What's the metric of success here? What's sort of your decision making process where you weigh, okay, if we develop this, if we spend time developing this and distributing this, it's going to bring value to our members, to our employees, and this value sort of outweighs, right, the costs and things like that. What's your decision making process, the success metric you're looking for, and maybe the examples of the value you're looking for?
Okay, so for value, I'm really going to say everybody is thinking financial impact. What can we
Sure.
gain from a financial aspect? How can we improve the numbers, stay in the green, uh, uh, potentially expand revenue, things of that nature. But from my perspective, and I know I'm not speaking on behalf of my organization
Sure.
um, in this particular podcast. But what I will say is that value expands beyond the numbers. So
Hmm.
when we talk about value and we talk about return on investment, what we're really looking for is how can we help? How can we impact not only the end user, but the team member to have more meaningful and insightful interactions with each other? How can we add value to the organization in ways that speak to the heart? So we don't want to have a cold fish approach where we consider that we have the technology at our fingertips and we have AI at our fingertips now, that a text message or an email that's auto generated is going to solve a problem
Hmm.
where compassion is the center of the resolution. So my assessment of ROI would be very different in terms of bringing the humanity back into the technology and making sure that the people that we are caring for don't feel a coldness when they
Yeah.
face the technology. So
Do
that's
you
kind
have
of the
Yeah,
go ahead.
absolutely. And do you have an experience where um, that sort of shows us, you know, interacting with members and patients with compassion was sort of more important than whatever was on paper or the time it took or whatever, right? Whatever results they got. Um, yeah, would you happen to have a story or an experience that, yeah, uh,
Kind of
e-
speaks to the
ex
the
the compassion,
compassion.
yeah, yeah.
So we have, I think, the best use case that resonates with the compassion aspect is that we have what we call community wellness centers. That's where you really get to meet the members where they are. So these are going to be at some point the end users of whatever technology or interface you implement, right? So what happens is we we needed a way to give those centers the opportunity to connect and engage with the people in their community. So what they were looking for is a way to provide notifications for classes, for different health and wellness, benefits and events and things of that nature. If there's a closure for the center, if there's some type of um, information that's useful from on a personal or individual level. We've had some
Mm,
very, very, very good examples of community members being positively impacted by the use of technology in our wellness centers, because these are the kinds of interactions that sitting in an office in IT, you don't get to have every
yeah.
day. And so you know that you're putting everything in place. You know what work it took to get it implemented, everything that had to happen behind the scenes to build, develop, test, deploy. But what we don't get to oftentimes is to be face to face with the people that are impacted by the front end. So
Yep.
I would say that's one of the use cases where compassion really comes into play. When you hear those stories back in the larger meetings where it's all hands, you get an opportunity to hear those stories back, and you get to think in your mind, I had a little piece of that, I had a little part to do with making sure that member got what they needed. So
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Tahira. You mentioned, I want to touch on one more a point you mentioned earlier. You mentioned bringing AI in ethically. What did
mhm.
you mean by that?
So as you well know, AI is still in its adolescence, right? So there are a lot of things yet to discover. There are a lot of things that happen when we use AI, just say even when we use it on a personal level, if you're using, a particular LLM or something, um, hallucinations are possible, incorrect data is possible, all of that is possible. Being as part of a health plan, we've got to be really careful about data sensitivity, right? So where we're looking
Mhm.
for
Okay.
PHI, PII, and trying to avoid drastically having to avoid any violations of HIPAA or anything
Yep.
of that nature. So we want to make sure that from a security perspective, that everything we do is vetted by our security teams, our systems and infrastructure team. And we want to make sure that we are shedding light on any biases that may be occurring within
Mm.
the AI uh, products that we develop and deploy. We want to make sure that our algorithms are safe and they aren't excluding where they shouldn't be or including where they shouldn't be, things of that nature. So
This is actually a very I don't know. It's new. It can be challenging. It can
mhm,
be confusing sometimes, and I really want to learn from you and have our audience learn from you about this point. Um,
mhm,
from a philosophy standpoint, right?
mhm,
We want to, you know, be secure and privacy sensitive and build this in the product. But in terms of the execution, what is
mhm,
your process and what is your strategy? What does it look like? Is it bringing the security team members into the room as you're designing the product initially? Is it, in the test phases and the quality assurance phases? Is it, in these team meetings where you discuss this,
mhm.
what's the execution look like? How do you actually do it?
One thing I can really say is I've learned a lot from my boss actually. So um, we're bringing everyone relevant in from the beginning. So before we
Hmm.
do anything, so
Yeah.
Jeremy, before we do anything, when we set up the framework, we had those conversations with our security team and our compliance team and our legal team to ensure that we're checking all the boxes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So we what we have to do is we have to identify all the potential vulnerabilities, and then we have to lay those out and have the conversation with those teams that are relevant who are going to give us the yeses and nos. Um, for example, the organization that I work for is heavily regulated. So anytime there's a regulatory body or someone that you have to answer to in terms of keeping your organizational data safe, protecting the members, protecting the organization, and protecting ourselves as team members, because we really don't want to risk having vulnerabilities in any of our products that we deploy. So it's always about bringing the right people into the room from the beginning. That's definitely, even if it's just informational, hey, we're doing this and we want you to know, just in case there are any questions. Somebody may think of something that you didn't even think of, especially as technology changes. AI and automation are so rapidly evolving that
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
could be a day when an issue didn't exist, and the very next
Yep.
day that issue arises, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. You
um, yeah,
got to be on your
you've got
toes
to
and stay
keep,
lockstep. Yeah.
yeah, you've got to keep on pace with the rapid changes that are happening, not only within your organization, but also around it and outside of it. Pay attention to your sister plans and other health organizations. The news is a big one. So
Right.
it's about bringing more eyes and ears into the room when you're even thinking of developing something, because they may have heard or seen or know something that can contribute to the safety of your product. So
Tahira, thank you so much for that. And I do want to switch
mm,
gears. I feel bad, but I also don't feel bad because there's so much I want to learn from you, and there's
yeah,
not enough time. But I do want to hit up on this. I'd love to understand, switching gears now completely.
yeah.
What was your personal journey, right? 11
Oh,
years, 19 years. And what was the most important thing you learned from your experience, your career?
okay. So my personal journey, well, so I started out in the beginning of my automation experience came, I'm sure that many people who have been in who have been employed for a long time, like me, started out behind a screen using Excel or Access or some, Microsoft native product, and just sitting there and thinking there has got to be a better way. And I talk about
Mm,
this all the time. So my journey really begins with um, my early career, and then as such, always having the curiosity to find the best way, the most efficient way. Um, it led me to want to know more about technology from a holistic perspective. So I decided that I needed to switch gears on my education. I had started to pursue right after high school just general education. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But after working and figuring out that technology is where my heart is, I got into my bachelor's program, which was in information systems. And then I got into the master's program. I decided that I wanted to continue with information systems, but I also wanted to have that business analytics perspective because I love numbers, I love statistics, I love reporting. And in fact, some of my earlier work at my current organization revolved around data quality and reporting. And that's where you find all the nuances in your data and information where there are breaks and gaps, and you learn to recognize patterns
mm,
and look at a very large set of things and know when something is off. And
yeah.
in a way, I became very good at that because, previously I was always looking for efficiency. So um, after that, I decided I wanted to pursue the PhD that I'm currently pursuing, which is technology and innovation management. And that's where I'm getting some of the really good stuff from. But outside of that, I mean, in terms of AI and automation, that's where I got a lot of the knowledge that I use in my day-to-day operations. But outside of that, I really have an interest in bringing sort of a psychology to it. Have you ever heard of flow state, Jeremy?
My understanding of flow state is without disruptions, right? We get into the groove, the flow of either work or the art or whatever we're doing. And we're super creative. It's like all the creative juices are unlocked and we're able to be super productive during that time. That's my understanding of flow
Yeah.
state. I learned it in game design originally and then, in work
Yes,
productivity.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I actually got started uh playing around with Sparky. Do we know the robot? You know the
Yeah, yeah,
robot? Yeah, so teaching it how to trace light paths and things like that.
yeah. I
Yeah,
did,
so
yeah.
that's how I got started with robotics. But going back to flow state, wouldn't it be really cool to kind of join all these things together, flow state and AI together? I think, wow, like, right? What could your workforce accomplish if you combined flow state with AI and automation and really came up with an end-to-end solution for all different types of needs to help facilitate just a continuous movement of the energy of creativity. And I think that that's something that's possible. That's where I would love to go. I know that's a wild idea, but right, I would love to go there um, in the future.
What might that look like? Are you thinking about like processes that enable people to get into flow to remove distractions and disruptions and their, while they're in flow, or are you thinking about enabling like technology and AI to enter some sort of flow itself, or using AI to help enable people? Yeah,
Okay, so not the middle one, but the first one and the last one, yes.
I see, I
And,
see.
and I'll tell you why, not the middle one. That's dangerous, right? And I think it's already happening.
Yeah,
When you give AI too much power to enter this sort of state to create things that you can't understand,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there's always this limitation of how far you let the technology go before you lose control of it. So that's not that's really not the path I think is for me. I'm not even there at that skill level to be able to contain, from a robotics or automated automation perspective, something like that. But yeah, what I'm thinking is, yes, what if you were able to utilize AI to remove the distractions so that the
Mm,
human can enter into a state of continuous creativity?
yeah.
I don't mean to sound like a machine by, referring to ourselves as humans, but that's what we are. But
No,
you know
we
what I
need
mean,
help.
right?
Yeah. So I'll give the audience another example, right?
Yeah.
You're working and in a business and you have
Uh-huh.
meetings and you have work that you got to do outside of meetings and you got to go in the meetings and you talk to people. So have you
Yeah.
ever had a scenario where you're doing work and you're being productive and then you got to get into a meeting? So you
Yeah.
stop doing the work, you get into the meeting, come out of the meeting, and you got to get back into that same work.
Yeah.
So while you're in the flow, you can be really, really productive. But once you break out of the flow, like to, go to a meeting or somebody interrupts you and you talk to them, um, it takes, I'm trying to remember, it takes like 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes to get back into flow. Now, 20 minutes is a
Yeah.
third of an hour, right? So
Yeah.
if you only have half an hour to work on something, even an hour to work on something, you lost a big chunk of time just getting back into the flow to be able to do real work, right, in the last 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So and if you multiply that 8 hours a day, right, 5 days a week and a
Exactly.
month, yeah, it's detrimental to break out of flow. Absolutely.
It is.
And
How
people
much
want to be
time are you
productive and save
Yeah, how
time.
much time are you losing? How much time are you losing? How much productivity are you losing per week, per day, per week, right? per
Yeah.
month if you're an organization or year, you're really quantifying this on a larger scale, right?
Yeah.
So how much time, but you personally, how much time are you losing breaking away from the flow? You know what I mean? Um, Distractions are not just limiting, but they also take away the interest.
Mm.
At a certain point, if you've come back to it, you've lost interest, you know?
Yeah.
So your curiosity is not going to be at the same level or even at its peak as it was when you first got the interest. You got that spark, you got that idea, you got that passion to do this thing. And,
You ever you
in the
ever
most when,
when you're going to bed, when you're about to go to bed, it's like 2 a.m. and you just lay in bed, you're not sleeping, and you just lay in bed, and you have this idea. It's like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to write it down. But then
yeah,
the morning comes and you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that.
yeah,
But you were so excited about it the night
yeah,
before when when you first thought of it, and you could
yeah,
have turned into something.
exactly. You know, like it's like not being able to we're having a killer idea in a dream and not being able to remember it when you wake up and you want to write it down. I think I've solved some really large scale world issues in my dreams and I haven't been able to remember it when I woke up. So yeah, I mean, flow state could be
Mhm.
anything. I'm really big on, and I know this isn't part of, the topic, but I'm really big on like Carl Jung and
Mm.
David Silva. So being in beta, when you're in the flow state, being in beta, and then really being able to tap into that creativity and uh, the intellect. So I know sometimes I lose simple things like simple arithmetic. you know, I lose the ability to do simple calculations from time to time because I've just blocked myself out of that mental state where I'm tapping into my intellect.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just don't want to. But I imagine, I know, myself as an employee, I do that a lot. I might space out during the meeting.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah.
And after the meeting, I'm ready to go home. The meeting could be at 10 a.m. After the meeting, I'm ready to go. So
Yeah.
yeah, just that's my idea, and I really really believe it's doable and it may be already
Oh yeah.
happening. You know, so
Probably not, but we'd love to see you do it. Because so many things,
okay,
so many people are working on so many things. It's yeah, not everybody's gonna get to everything, but
yeah,
gosh, and seeing your passion,
mhm,
and also just like I would be one of the first to sign up and use it.
yeah,
Yeah, it affects everybody every day.
yeah,
Um, we talked a little bit. I know we're starting to get over time, but we talked a
yeah,
little bit before our podcast when we first met on our intro, a little bit about sort of your personal experience in sort of the working either a healthcare company or any other company, being in a room, just making decisions and
mhm,
um I wanted to learn a little bit if we have the time to learn a little bit
mhm,
more about your journey there. Sort
mhm,
of you sort of expressing your voice and making your voice heard, contributing. Um, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I guess paving a path.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, awesome. Okay, so yeah, I think I mentioned to you that you know I I don't want to bring the audience into this realm that I'm talking specifically about who I am from an ethnic perspective. Let's just put it that way. But a lot of the times, I am the only person that looks like me in the room. Um, Making decisions, you're not always heard, you're not always valued. And I feel like, from my perspective, and I know, I have a women's network that I run, and I know a lot of women who do look like me and who are, who relate to my story, feel the way that I feel. Um, it takes a lot of work. You have to be on. 100% of the time. There's never a moment where um, you can afford to falter. But the crazy thing about that is the biggest part of success in technology is the failure. Getting to that point where you realize this isn't going to work and you got to figure out a way to do it better. And then you hit that, that one mark that helps you make that critical decision, that helps you make that critical change in your thinking process that just all of a sudden makes sense. Um, you have to be allowed to have those moments. You have to be. If you work in technology, my boss always told me you got to be willing to fail fast.
Yeah.
And my thing is fail forward. So those are the two things
Yep.
that, if you're gonna fall into progress. But um, a lot of times we are not permitted to fail. It's frowned upon, or it's like it's necessary. It's absolutely
Yeah.
necessary to figure out what the right path is. How do you know what the right path is if you never came across the wrong one? So
Yeah. That's what engineering is. Yeah, it's the
exactly.
fundamentals. Is failing, learning, don't make the same mistake, build upon the learn, try something new, you iterate, you look at the data, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
fundamental
yeah.
engineering, yeah.
Right. And I'm not talking about, being allowed to continue to fail at the same task. I'm talking
Sure, yeah,
about,
yeah, yeah, of course,
you
yeah.
know, but from a standpoint of decision making, I'm a facts person. This isn't always the right way to make a decision,
Sure,
Jeremy.
sure.
Sometimes, as we talked about compassion earlier on,
Yep,
sometimes
yep.
there's a need to wedge in touchy feels in your decision making, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Especially with the population we work with.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
my take on decision making and my experience with decision making is you gotta learn to trust your voice. You've got
Yeah.
to learn to let go of imposter syndrome when the decision that you need to make puts everything on the line. So
Mhm,
you've got
mhm.
to be able to make that decision and have a solid foundation for it. That's the first thing. If you've got all the background, you're good, and you need to be able to trust that. But you've also got to have the ability to stick to the decision that you've made once you've made it. And you have to have the willingness to either ask for forgiveness if you made a mistake or and recoup quickly, pull yourself together. But I think all of those are critical things about decision making. In my experience, that's what I've learned. That's what I've gained from being in a room with decision makers. Um, and I say this one thing, I don't mean to keep you on, but I say this one thing to myself all the time. I do I gotta stop seeking permission from other people to do the things that I've already been assigned to do.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
So when you seek that permission from other people, your assignment comes from wherever it comes from, above you, a higher power or authority or whatever, right? Um, if you seek someone else's permission to do that thing, it will always be a very loud and emphatic no. But if you trust you to do that thing because whoever saw in you that you were capable, when it comes to technology, that's where I live. I don't need anyone's permission to do anything that I've trained myself, that I went to school for 12 years to learn, that I do every day, that I can do it when I get home from work. I do it for a hobby. Like, no, I've got what it takes, so
Yeah, yeah.
that's it. Decision
I
making for me, like, that's what it is.
I think that's an incredibly relatable story in all sort of facets of work and teams that you work on, and I think everybody can relate to that. I was just sitting thinking about I'm currently in a situation where I was hired on to do something, not with this company,
Yeah, yeah,
and and it's a room full of very, very smart people. And you mentioned imposter syndrome, this and that, and I understand that the people on the other side of the table I have way more experience, decades more experience than I do, right?
yeah,
Um, and and what you said about believing in your voice, trusting in your voice, I have the background, but only I have the unique experience that I have, right? And that's why I was hired. That's why I'm assigned to do this
yeah,
and this, right?
yeah,
So so yeah, and it's interesting because I've kind of gone rogue and I've just been doing it anyway. It's just
yeah,
while still doing everything else. But yeah, we'll see where that leads. And in the past, and I'm not the first time I've done it, but in the past, it's served me well. So, um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, no,
No, no, Jeremy, off the record though, that's
sure.
amazing. That's great. That's your value. That's the value that you add. And the reason I say that is because I was talking to somebody yesterday about once you start copying other people, you don't even realize you're doing this if you're seeking validation from them, right? Once you start
Right, right.
copying other people, they immediately become your competition. Now you've created a one-sided competition with them that they have no idea about. And so if you never copy them and you stick to your original self, your uniqueness, and you go on and do the things like you said you were doing, there is no competition. There is no
Yeah,
competition. Therefore, there's no possibility that somebody's even better at it than you, more experienced than you. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
I mean,
You're the
it's
best
just
at
something
doing
to
you.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Just something to think about. And me being in technology and feeling like all of these people are smarter than me, uh, sometimes I lean on that. Yeah. I'm not here to do what they've done or what they're doing. I'm here to do my thing.
Wait, sorry, curiosity. At this point in your career, like, you're well, like you're a
Yeah.
veteran at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you still feel that sometimes?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, Jeremy, if it ever goes away. I don't know if it ever goes away. There are pockets of time where I live in my confidence. And those days are really good days. I feel amazing, like Superwoman walking out with my chest up high, you know? Um, but there are also pockets of time where I fall into that reclusivity because it's comfortable. Now, I grew up in it. Um, and so growing out of it takes a lot of guts, takes a lot of
Mhm.
guts. But you're also trying to balance humility, you know.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
I know that I'm not the smartest person on the planet. I'm not the foremost authority on AI or automation or any of this. I even hire people who know way more than me so that they can make things better than I could ever make it. But the confidence that I have is in the things that I have not asked them to do. So it's the things that only I am doing in this moment. And that's where I draw my confidence from. But yes, I still experience that.
Tahira, thank you so much for speaking with us today and sharing your wisdom and your stories and experiences with us. It's so, so valuable. And I learned a lot from it. I need to write it down afterwards. Um, Tahira, last question is,
Yeah.
who from our community of healthcare technology, engineering, AI leaders, should reach out to you, and what's the best way to reach you?
I think anyone who is interested, well, first of all, I would love for more women who are interested in technology, AI automation to reach out to me because that is really a soft spot for me. And I want to see more females in the spaces, so taking up space in technology and AI, and not to be afraid of it. So those people who are looking for like a beacon of light, saying, hey, I've been there, I've done that. Reach out to me. You can find me, and also anybody just curious about what we're doing on an AI on automation front. I love to talk to you. All things data science also. You can find me on LinkedIn. My profile is my name, Tahira Davis, and send me an email and I will respond to you. If you don't try to sell me something, I will respond to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
To Thank you so much. Links will be in the description, folks. And we'll also be posting this on LinkedIn, so you'll be able to see. We'll tag Tahira here. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. And folks, thanks for listening to another episode. We'll see y'all next time.